Hello, everybody. I'm just about ready to get started. Welcome, No Swear. So, Chad, I have some good news and some bad news. Good news, we're going to talk about RBR, and I have a few things to say on that topic, so I thought I'd add it in here. Bad news, my monitor is cracked. I guess something happened while I was setting up for PSO, and it is a little hard to see on one side of the screen. So we'll see how far we can get today with PSO. But from the standpoint of showcasing, at least that shouldn't have any impact on what the stream can see. I'm just in challenge mode, as it were. So before we go into our longer discussion regarding RBR, I want to try booting in as a specific character on block 1 before we do our normal things. Those that have seen the stream before, we love to do block 2. But I'm really curious because I keep seeing things being posted in the forums about RBR. And, you know, granted today will be a small sample size, but I don't think it would be unrealistic if we checked right now at, you know, middle of the week, a little after dinner time on the East Coast. What kinds of quests are people running currently? So let's do a little experiment before we go into our larger conversation piece here. For TTF? Oh, we'll see. I definitely think it's going to be a lot of TTF. Is there a reason this doesn't want to work? Oh, you're just being finicky with me. So, yeah, chat could put their guesses in before we take a look. I have a feeling it's going to be a bit more mixed than just TTF, but not by very much. So we're just going to go ahead and take a look. Oh, speaking of which, there's actually not that many games on today. Let's see what people are running. Oh, they haven't picked a game yet. Oh, nobody's picking games so far. War Limits 2, that makes sense. Oh, the West Tower, gross. Lots of kind of in-between quests at the moment. I'm honestly a little surprised. I was expecting a few more quests here. Yeah. Well, we'll switch over to the other block as well. I'm expecting to see some limits, but literally other than limits, I don't expect to see any. Yeah, maximum attack B, that makes sense. New mop up 3, makes sense. So I'm just kind of getting a feel for what people are doing. We see, you know, Ade playing presumably War of Limits at some point because we have some WOLs. I think that's the only viable one for the moment. Game no longer active. We have MAE pings. We got CCCs. And we got some mixes in here. Random attack Xrd Rev 1. Oh, now that is that is something I would do. I'm surprised other people are doing that. But, you know, I'm just kind of looking through, you know, you see a lot of maximum attacks. You get some 1Bs. There's usually somebody running purple. Purple lilies, that's a classic. Doesn't matter what the thing is. Purple MAE on ultimate, interesting. MAE no force, War of Limits. So other than War of Limits, chat, I don't expect to see anything else other than maybe ultra low level players playing anything else. Wow, Maximum Attack version 2. That is a bold choice. I'm not gonna lie to you, chat. So the reason I'm going through this, oh, there's Pod, there's the inevitable Pod, is that there was a complaint that a lot of the quests that are being run during RBR week are RBR quests. So I just figured we'd take a look through in real time and fact check ourselves before we make any comments here. To no one's surprise, Towards the Future is there. You see the occasional government quests, you know, people are playing the game. So like there are at least some War of Limits in here. But one thing that I just kind of want to go through and emphasize as we go through and check these quests out, you'll notice a pattern that there is like maybe one total player playing West Tower on what looks to be a very busy day. And I think that just kind of goes into what I wanted to talk about with RBR, in that not all quests are created equally. And it makes sense. Like, War of Limits 2 is like an actual viable quest, so people are gonna play it when it enters RBR. But, you know, let's take a look at these hard modes. Oh, look, people are doing Towards the Future. Oh, look at normal mode. People are doing government quests. How about another normal mode? Oh, they're not playing anything. They're just free roaming. Or feeding mag or something. See a War of Limits 1 in here. So where I'm going with this is that I think there is a serious issue with the RBR quest selection. So if we go ahead and hit RBR now, and I'll even minimize my little dialogue here just to make it a bit easier to see as we listen to Dynasty Warriors. There are a lot of bad quests, and I feel like people need to be really honest with themselves whenever we're talking about RBR, that not a large majority. I do think people over-exaggerate that, but I think it is safe to say that there is at least 4 quests each episode that are absolutely worthless. And I mean, like, only those that are very curious or don't know better will end up playing them, right? I mean, like, these are the quests where, like, the highlight to kill in something like Endless Nightmare 1 is 45 Buma. That's it. It has, like, literal, like, it is 5 of this, 4 of this, 3 of this. Worthless quest. Like, genuinely worthless quest. And I feel like when we see these kinds of rotations in RBR, I feel really disappointed. And I know I'm not the only player that feels disappointed when we see them in there. Now, granted, you know, there are quests that can be good hunts in War of Limits. You know, potentially you're doing your, potentially Astarks, or you're doing your equivalency of Satellite Lizards. There's a lot of things that you can get from Episode 4, so it's a bit safer. But even Episode 4 is not immune to just bad quests, unfortunately. And what I'm hoping for from the standpoint of RBR in particular, I could even just poke around at some of these other games. People that are playing normal difficulty are not going to be playing these for leveling. So I don't really know who these kinds of quests are supposed to be catering towards. Like, we found one person in Block 1 doing Endless Nightmare 1. I think we saw one in Block 2 earlier. I saw one West Tower, period. But, like, these quests are inherently bad for the players. And, like, granted, if people aren't, like, hard diving into the wiki or, like, really caring about whether something is quote-unquote good or not, they're gonna play it regardless if it's in rotation. Like, we have as many people playing Twilight Sanctuary in Block 1 as we do playing RBR. So, like, just let that statement let that statement settle in, because there are some really dead quests. And I feel like from the perspective of RBR, it is kind of an evolution of what the Hunter Boost Road used to be. So instead of having a monthly rotation of quests where you complete, up to 3, maybe more during events, you gather up points, the points raise your drop rate, raise the rare rate, you get boosted experience when you're below 100. Instead of that, it's just you have a set of 3 quests every week. And I think a big problem with it is just that there are so many bad RBR quests. Like, inherently, there are weeks that are very good. I think in particular, people kind of short sell a lot of things, like your Endless Nightmare 3s, your Sweep Up 3s. Pretty much anything involving Mines Episode 1 is extremely playable. It's hard to name an example where there isn't a good hunt in Mines, because Mines just has so many good items. But at the same time, we're just seeing an inherent problem where, if I look at the forecast, for example, today, I could see that, it is Newman's Females. If I were to just make a random game in Episode 2 to showcase something, it's XP week. So I feel like a big issue in particular with some of these quests, there's like, who is honestly wanting to play West Tower during XP week? Do you know what I mean? Like, it not only has like a really low enemy count, there's no viable hunts. It's a hard quest for most players to clear, either through boredom or for the fact that it requires you to defeat Ilgils. So, like, I just feel kind of confused what the intent of RBR is, and I made a forum post kind of summarizing these thoughts as well, where my expectation is that there are basically two groups of people that play PSO, right? You have people that are coming in for the first time. You have the newbies. People might not believe it, but there's people that do come in almost every month, and they're starting up a fresh character, or they're like returning from Dreamcast servers, or they played other servers and they're giving Ephinea a shot. They're not the majority, but they are a faction of people that play, right? And then you have the veterans. You have people that could be anywhere between they've been on the server for a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. And I feel like when you get these kinds of RBRs, that there is almost literally no reason to run a majority of these vanilla quests. And I feel like if we want to go somewhere with RBR, I really hope we remove Endless Nightmare 1, East Tower, West Tower. Honestly, the new mop-up operations in episode 4, outside of literally number 3 and number 4, they're pretty terrible as well. There's a lot of quests you could just kind of look at and you go like, wow, it only has like 28 Buddhas. What are we doing? like we have so many good custom quests and we have so many better vanilla quests. I don't understand why these things are in rotation. And I keep seeing defended in the forums from the standpoint of RBR that every quest should be included. I want to go on the record on YouTube. I've already gone on the record on the forum and Discord. I think we should be curating, these quests down a little bit. There are a lot of quests that are basically on par with much better things if only we brought them into RBR. So I'll give an example. There are pretty strong quests like Phantasmal World 2 that are not in the rotation. Phantasmal World 4 is not in the rotation of RBR. Those quests definitely would be picked more often than not. I think a lot of people would drop it, like how we're seeing War Limits 2, in order to play it. And I feel like the people that say that, you know, people are only playing RBR quests are crazy. I'm just going to say that is a super scorching hot take. I'm calling out everybody that defended that in the forum. Absolutely not. There are always going to be people doing TTF. There are sometimes going to be people doing RT. There's always somebody doing pod. There's somebody always doing episode 4. And there's always, you know, kind of the niche quests. You'll usually see a Terrell Zigo. Especially when you see Rare Enemy Week, you're going to see like a very set block of quests no matter what you put in the RBR. So I'm just calling that out, number 1. Number 2. I do feel from the standpoint of RBR that the bonuses are actually okay, and I don't think they necessarily need to be raised. But I will say that whether you view this as a strength or a weakness, there's not really a big reason to clear a lot of these quests, right? So you don't get any bonus points for handing in the quest, and it contributes to some other point total that gives you boost. Handing in a quest doesn't give you a chance at getting gifts. Handing in a quest doesn't give you badges or coins or anything like that, with obviously some exceptions if they're in the vanilla quest. But from the standpoint of hunts, there are things veterans can do, there are things that newbies can do. And unfortunately, with some of these vanilla quests, until we have like a very serious discussion and agreement that not all quests are created equal, and that people will always pick TTF almost regardless of the rares, or whatever bonuses there are in RBR or any other event, should speak volumes to the fact that we just went through, I don't know, 50-something quests just now, and we saw single-digit, sometimes singular quests of some of these Episode 1 and Episode 2 selections. So I'm not advocating for everything to be like, we should put Boss Rush in RBR. I really think for the standpoint, we can leave the ones that are quote-unquote always picked forever outside of the RBR lineup, but I really want to see some of these bad quests removed, because honestly, they're not really all that fun to do. And I'll read chat comment before we continue our conversation there. Retract says, I did also see the reply to you about having it banned to sometimes make it more addictive. I think it's some merit, but I don't think it provides any real value is the big issue. Some people think people online is the goal, but I feel the focus should be on making the most enjoyable experience instead. I feel like if you want to keep it fresh, ultimately, I mean, you can argue that, you know, the weekly bonuses are an addictive component of MMOs, and I'm gonna go, okay, and I don't think that really, to me, that's just kind of a side point in the conversation, and has, like, almost no bearing in regards to how to improve server health. We've had conversations with people on the Discord, we've had conversations with people on YouTube, or I've had the conversations with at least people on YouTube, in regards to people literally looking at RBR and going, wow, this week sucks, and they stop playing. They're like, no. And then all it takes is just 1 or 2 of those in a row, and people just stop playing the game altogether. And it's not because they don't want to play, it's because there's inherently nothing that they want to grind out. And you could view that as more of an issue with Ultimate, where it is extremely unsatisfying to go for like the 1 in 4,000 or the 1 in 16,000 week after week and not really see anything. So some kind of feature to keep it a bit fresh, to give you a reason to try out quests that you normally wouldn't pick, I think is a really good thing, and we should keep it. The problem is that there's almost no reason to play a lot of the early vanilla quests because they are just so poorly designed. I mean, if you don't believe me, all you have to do is ask yourself some really basic PSO questions like, what is the best way to hunt Olga Flow? And then when you realize that the consensus on the forums and on the wiki is that it's better to free roam than do an episode 2 quest, should tell you how dire some of the quest making is in PSO. And again, shout outs to all the custom quest creators that have really breathed life into otherwise kind of janky or kind of stale areas. You have your, you know, Omnispawn quests coming out. You have your multi-area quests that are going through. Those are the kinds of quests that I think we should continue to highlight and push. And I hope that we expand the quest selection to include those kinds of quests. I would say more controversial if there are quests that lead to final bosses, to potentially also include them. So things that are not meta, that I almost never see people run, but I think they would run it if it was an RBR, would be like your Lost Striker, your Episode 4 Lost Quest, essentially, just to shortcut that a little bit. And from the standpoint of Episode 1, I'm not sure if they'll ever include something like an Endless Episode 1 or Random Attack Xrd. I don't know if they would be open to that as a philosophy, because I notice in general, they do allow some boss quests, but not the ones that normally go to final bosses. So I'm not sure if we'll ever see some of those in the current mentality or methodology of RBR. I'm also a strong advocate of not bringing in more jank. I really don't feel like quests like, I'm just gonna say it, I don't think things like Mine Offensive should ever be an RBR. Ever. I'm just gonna say that I feel like that's the safest take I could ever say. I'm like, listen, if a quest is very gimmicky, I don't think it belongs in RBR. People want to go like, hey, what is this quest? Try it and maybe have fun with the group and get some bonuses. So I think there is something to say where some of the quote-unquote perceived value of quests is tied into the current drop tables. I'm going to not really go into that conversation other than we've said on stream multiple times. Buff Green ID, buff Spaceship. But aside from those two exact points, I do feel like we're missing quests that are just like a little above average that I think would really be fun to do in RBR. So I mentioned before Phantasmal World 2, Phantasmal World 4. But honestly, there's just a whole bunch of new custom quests that have come out, like Lost Sun Gym, for example, that aren't necessarily like a number 1 in a hunt or even a number 2. But with enough enemies, it would still be like a pretty good XP run, or just a pretty good quote-unquote general run through something like Caves. And I feel like I want to see them go more towards heavier enemy quests. I don't know if they'll go full gimmick like Endless Episode 1, for example, but I really would like to see them kind of play around with the quest list. I definitely just want to go on record and say that I am super concerned about where they're going to go with it in regards to Welcome Parameter to the anniversary event and how these bonuses might work going forward. I feel like from the perspective of a player, if you want me to play these really awful, I'm going to call them what they are awful vanilla quests, you have to give an incentive outside the quest to play it. You could boost the drop rate to 175 rare, 175 drop. You could even buff it to like 225. I still wouldn't play certain quests because there's just nothing worth hunting in them, like, at all. Like, either because, like, you know, as I said before, drop table might not align, or number of monsters is just really low, or the quest is just not really fun. Like, I don't think people are going to argue whether or not something like War of Limits is potentially good on, like, Blue ID, for example, but I personally will not run it because I get bored holding forward on the control stick or auto-walking. So, like, there's always going to be, like, a level of personal preference, even on the quests that are quote-unquote good. And I think as long as we either play around with, you know, right now we only have 3 quests, and we have a lot of dead quests, quote-unquote, collectively across the episodes, that I would like to see those kind of get cleaned up. Battery says, if we don't get RBR changes for anniversary and their nerf badges, it's over for Ephinea. I don't know. I really hope that they just take a minute to really think about what they want RBR to be. Do they want it to be all-inclusive and it has some kind of catch-up ramp of XP to help like secondary characters or fresh characters go in from 1 to 80, and that should be their alternative to just spamming TTF on every difficulty known to mankind? Or do they want it to be more like, oh, we have veterans that are here, but they get bored of playing like 3-4 dominant quests, so we're gonna slightly give bonuses to already good quests that wouldn't be run normally over something like an episode 4 MAE boss run, because it's just missing just a little bit, just like a little bit, to put it up in terms of rebalancing the quests. And I think there are some quests that are, again, perfectly runnable in RBR, and I feel like it would be kind of like inappropriate for some of them to get buffs. So I'll give an example. Virtual Limits 2 is somewhat niche in its hunts, but it has a decent amount of enemies. It would be perfectly fine in RBR. You bring in something like Virtual Limits 1, where it has tons, I mean like tons of really good hunts. That's where potentially we start having like warping quests. So I totally get when people are concerned about whether or not they want to, you know, put these strong quests in here. But at the same time, we have to be honest with ourselves and say, not all quests are created equal. There's a reason people run things like Terrell's Ego almost 24/7 or TTF. I'm not going to advocate for, we'll say, like the top 8 or top 10 quests to ever enter RBR. But at the same time, I think people either just don't know about or have kind of forgotten that there are a lot of other really good custom quests that could go in there. Like, as I said before, I don't want to see a CCC in here. I don't want to see it Towards the Future. I don't even want to see an RT. Even as much as I dislike RT and we make fun of it on stream, I still wouldn't put RT in there. It's terrible as it is. But from that standpoint, I really, really, really hope that they take feedback seriously, especially because they're going to get a lot of feedback. I'm going to go on record. They're going to get a lot of feedback on this anniversary patch. I really hope they don't do anything too crazy. Oh, we see HellCleave in there. Yeah, wild HellCleave spotted. And I really hope from that standpoint that they really just kind of buckle down. I don't think the right fix for these quests is to put it at 150%. I feel like people are, you know, I don't want to go in the misnomer of the catch-up wealth. I'm not even going to touch that conversation. I don't even want to approach it. I'll put like the big sign up and go, I don't care about the catch-up ramp. I'm just more concerned about if you want to offer something other to do than the, you know, the top 5 or the top 10 quests. Some of these quests need very little in order to be more or less worth your time. And there are so many other vanilla quests that aren't there. But at the same time, like, just compare something like a Penumbral Surge to like an Endless Nightmare 2 or something like that. Like, there's just inherently so many better items, so many more enemies, so many better chances at getting a group by just playing something like a Penumbral Surge compared to some of these other alternatives. So I hope that they kind of go through the quest list and curate it. I'm going to be very, very sad if they add more quests without leveraging it against some kind of point system. I think at one point we threw out, like, I'll just give random, I'm not saying they should go with it, but I was just throwing out random ideas. Like, you have, like, some scaling partial bonuses that would make up for not having 3-player teams, but that would kind of ruin the group dynamic. You could have something like a season thing where you accrue points just by playing RBR. So if you don't like a week, you hold the bonus until a year, so you get to decide which ones you want to grind out. They could kind of bring that back if they really wanted to. You know, there could be something complete one of each quest and you get an item at the end. People have suggested that in the forums and stuff like that. There's a lot of things you could do to touch it. But honestly, I feel like if you want to get the most in terms of quote-unquote positive response, we really just need to fine-tune the quest list a little bit. So I think from that perspective, we covered almost all my points. I'm looking to just double-check one thing before we go further. But I think overall, from the standpoint of RBR, I do think for the most part, it has been fun to play when the rares line up. As I said before on the Discord and the forums before, nothing to me is more frustrating to see, like, rare enemy week pop up, and I'm like, wow, there's actually so many good rare enemy quests that are in RBR. Let's see if any of them are in there today. And then it's Mines, and then it's Ruins, and then it's Seabed, and then it's Tower. And I'm like, come on, really? I'm like, these are, like, easy chances to get people playing something else for XP week or rare enemy week if people just don't want to do those hunts. And it is just so annoying that those quests just don't line up with anything. Like, just no useful bonuses. It's so sad, chat. I guess a more controversial point, I would also advocate bringing back things like Lost Soul Blade. It originally was the reason that XCal got nerfed in Mines, but now that they changed it to Sinnoh Red, I honestly don't see a reason it shouldn't be in there. I would say my other kind of hot take quest that I would also probably say, I don't know if it falls in the top 10 or not, but the new Mop-Up Operation 3 is not on the list, and I could see that coming in. My dream pick would be if they ever put the Random Attack Exerd. Chat, if they put Random Attack Exerd in there, I'd be there the whole week. Like, it would actually genuinely be like a week of PSO. That would be my anniversary quest. I can be honest with you, chat. That is definitely my kind of quest. But I do think from the standpoint of RBR, I don't think the right approach is to add more vanilla quests. I'm okay with adding more of the custom quests because they have higher enemy density, because they're better designed, because they are not massive walk fests, because they have quality of life teleports and all these other things. So I'm really hoping that they kind of proceed to add some of, not every custom quest. Like, I think, like, for example, the Chrono Trials that came out are great for the people that enjoy them, have no business being in RBR. But other things that involve the Omnispawn, those absolutely should be in the RBR in the rotation. You know, your Scarlet Realms are some of the best quests in RBR. Like, just honestly speaking, like, they are really, really good. And, you know, there are some vanilla quests that are worth adding to or not worth adding, but are in RBR and are decent to run. You know, you have your Endless Nightmare 4s. We talked about pretty much everything in Mines is crazy value. New Mop Operation 4, for example, at episode 4 is solid. War of Limits 2 is good. Like, there are several quests at every episode I can name offhand without looking at the quest list. And I will say, from the standpoint of RBR, I don't know if I would have tried them had they not been in the quest itself. Or not in the quest list itself, I meant to say. But I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I have a feeling we're going to be redoing the quest guide. And I think that's all I have to really say about that. So if chat has any final thoughts before we go into actual PSOing, I just wanted to have a little conversation about RBR. I don't think there were anything too much worth discussing in the Discord or the forums that we didn't cover here, other than I saw some scorching hot takes. I guess I'll say that it is definitely interesting from a perspective to have not heard any formal roadmap. I remember the word this time, chat, in regards to if they even want to touch it at all or how they feel about it. So I definitely think, even if small tangent here, I feel like there is a PR issue with Ephinea, and I hope that they open up potentially like another Discord channel and or another general announcement that is not patch related to kind of just go over things that they're planning to do. Because I do think that they are planning something for RBR. I don't know how drastic it is, but from the standpoint of, you know, sitting here and talking about topics like these, I don't think I've really seen a whole bunch of things other than I believe in the forum way back in January when this was being discussed, was that there was a personal choice to essentially continue to push PSO as a grind fest. I don't know if I super agree with that, but I think from the perspective of modern Ephinea, I really hope that they rethink the RBR list. I don't want to necessarily go back to something like HBR. I think that was inherently kind of just unfun, if I'm going to be honest with you, in regards to playing a lot of quests that I didn't like to get a bonus that I may or may not get a chance to do because I work another job, so I don't have a lot of free time to take advantage of the bonus, and then I have to do this weird balancing game to decide if each month it's worth doing. So I'd rather just not go through that again. I feel like that was actually really unhealthy. So I think if they want to add like a very lesser version of it, I don't know if I would be upset necessarily, but I don't want to see it return to like the 300 point stacking nonsense that was in HBR before. So anyway, I think that's all I wanted to say. So we're going to isolate this from the rest of the video. So we're going to say goodbye to YouTube. Thank you for watching, YouTube, and hopefully see you again next time.